Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Today, I want to talk about blacks being on code. Uh, there are some blacks in America who have inappropriate behavior. They don't understand what's being on code, and maybe they was taught some of it in our culture, African American culture, but due to the phenomenon of drug epidemic, the crime waves or crime epidemic in the black community due to systemic racism and being locked out of finances and crimes being the norm in the black community due to not having financial equities. Many blacks Americans start getting off code. So what it means to be on code, even in the religion of Islam, there are ethics, a code of ethics in Islam. Muslims dealing with Muslims, Muslims dealing with certain situations, and dealing with non-Muslims. We have in the religion of Islam codes. We might call it etiquettes or manners or akhlaq or khulq. In the black community, we have adopted a way of being off code, and I mentioned why and where it comes from. Another part of being off code is also from self-hate, and self-hate leads blacks to fight and to do things that does not help us as a race of people. So we have a lot of blacks who are off code, and some of that also was promoted through the music genre and the movies and the entertainment genre that talks and shows from the negative experience of people who are off code. Basically, we took criminal elements and we made entertainment out of it. And that's how some of the off codes in the black community where it extends from or who is promoting it. Now I want to talk about being on code. And I want to show you in our country, there are other people's societies, institutions that have codes. And I want to talk about that. Police have codes. Police have code of ethics and codes. So law enforcement have codes. Courtrooms have codes. Judges have codes. Family court has codes. Criminal court have codes. Civil court has codes. Everywhere you look, there's codes of ethics. Doctors have a code of ethics. Everywhere we could look in the society, we can see people, institutions are practicing codes. Everywhere there's codes. In some cases, some of their codes or their ethics are titled as codes of ethics. You can see it in law. You can see in the legal system and jurisprudence that lawyers practice. There's a code of ethics in the courtroom, in the courthouse. When you enter the bench or before you enter the bench, there's a code of ethics. They even speak on code. When you hear legal terms, that's speaking on codes. The doctors have codes of ethics that they use related to procedures, how to deal with the patient, what to do and what not to do. All these are a code of ethics. We see it everywhere. Teachers have a code of ethics in school. The principal in the school have a code of ethics that he or she follows. Everywhere we can see in the society, there is a code of ethics. everywhere. For those who don't know, can't see. Those who from the dumb, the deaf, and the blind can't see. Everywhere in society is a code of ethics. The plumber, he has a code of ethics. There's a code he understands. You ever see a licensed plumber or a licensed electrician? Ask them what are some of the codes they have in their trade. Everywhere we look, there's a code. They have codes. Whether these codes are numbers that mean certain rules or policies, but there are codes. The government have a code. Everywhere we look in society, even the government in the United States, and governments have codes. African American Muslims, we are off code. Chinese have code of ethics. For example, you go to Chinatown in any country, in anywhere in the US, you go to Chinatown, you notice you never see non-Chinese have business in Chinatown. That's a code. Chinese are on code. They'll buy certain products only from other Asians. Chinese are on code. When you go in a black neighborhood and you see Chinese or Asians have business in the black neighborhood, and you notice that they don't hire black people, they are on code. When you notice in the black community, when people who are not from the black community have a business like Arabs, when they go in the black neighborhood, you notice only Arabs are working in the Arab business. That's them being on code. Every society have a code of ethics, no matter where you go, no matter where you look, whether it's from cultural or it's from an institution. They are on codes. U.S. government have codes. What do you think the Constitution means? And even the Constitution, there is the outwardness of the Constitution, which is a code, and then there's a white supremacist understanding of the Constitution, a social understanding of the how to implement the code of ethics or the code considered to be the U.S. Constitution. There's a white interpretation of it. There's a white supremacist interpretation of it. That's in the social fabric of America. That's a code. That's white people being on code. For example, when white people decide in America to build America financial institution, you notice they did not enslave Europeans. That's being on code. They did not enslave Europeans. They enslaved black Africans. Why didn't they enslave Europeans? Because they being on code. And part of their code, they understand as the white race to be advanced, they can't oppress other Europeans or enslave other Europeans. That's called being on code. Even to the Constitution of America, when it was written, it's a code of law for Europeans. And that's why black people who have been enslaved in the United States for hundreds of years, a white person from Europe to come to America and can reap all the white privilege and benefits despite black people being here longer than them, because the law's constitution is on code and it was made for Europeans and the European diaspora. So that's why Donald Trump, whose father is an immigrant, have more power and say so in America over another black person whose ancestors built this country were enslaved. The Constitution is the white European code, the white diaspora European code of ethics in America, how to deal and to work with other Europeans and how to deal with non-Europeans. So black people need to have a code of ethics. And I'm not talking about, hey man, just doing business with black people. That's only a cosmetic or outward looking of codes. We need to have a code of ethics related to business, related to marriage, related to how to live with your neighbors, another black person. We need to have a code of ethics, how to do business, how to live, and how to conquer. We need to have a code of ethics. We're not going to go far in this country or any other society if we don't have a code of ethics. I'm going to tell you another code of ethics because I lived outside of the US. And some of us blacks who live outside of the US, you don't know this when you go to another nation, especially in the third world or second world country, you don't notice, even though you're black, you might meet another American that's white or another nationality, white or black or different nationality, but originally is from America, American citizenship. You don't notice, y'all start linking up and working together because you're on code. You're on code. You're on code. So us black peoples in America have to learn how to have a code of ethics and need to be written. It needs to be written. Well, you think, well, in Jim Crow, under Jim Crow, white people had a code of ethics. Jim Crow was part of European code of ethics. And blacks back then, when they had to only deal with other blacks, they even had a code of ethics amongst each other. But due to the white system want to impoverish the black community, and they took out of our community economics and finance, and that's when they had inclusion, affirmative action, all these came in place, and black people start losing their businesses to whites. That's also falling off cold because we were not on cold back then also. But criminology or the criminal element hit into our communities, we start picking up the criminal elements of codes that does not benefit the black community, but put us further back. And I can even tell you some of the criminal code of ethics in the black community. Don't snitch. Don't snitch. That snitching and don't snitch is a criminal element that black people brought into the black community. And it originally don't come from black snitching. It came from the white mobsters in America and criminal element. Actually, we borrow that from these words from them. And even today, we have these type of unethical codes in the black community. We need to have positive codes, a standard of living code, standard of living, dealing with situations, dealing with problems, getting out of problems, making the better situation for the blacks or black Americans. You got to be on code, right? That's what we said. You got to be on code. What's the code? Maybe another video I dropped some jewels on how these are also, what are some of the code of ethics that blacks need to use, like when it comes to business, getting money. I'm at job, I'm at my job, I'm working, and we only 2 or 3 black people on the job. And we have adversaries who don't like us because we're black. And I've seen in the job force, other black people against black people at work. There's only a few black people, and they doing this against other black people at work because they brown nosing. They want to get ahead, and they think if they sell out this other black worker, that he's going to get him ahead with the white man or the non-black person who's running the business or running the job or who's in the management position. Off code. When I go to work, I used to work at one company, a lot of Latinos on code. They even get on code to get you fired if you're not working with them or they don't like you and you're not Spanish. They even have a code that they do, lie, cheat, just to get you fired from the job. I've seen it happen to many people who work, especially to black folks who work. So even Spanish, Latinos that have codes, white people have codes. Everybody have a code except for black people. We start selling out and this and brown nosing because we're practicing individualism and we don't know how to move as a race or a group of peoples who are black. So we work against each other like the crab in the bucket scenario. If you're not on a code or code of ethics, we'll never survive. Let's look at this screenshot right in front of me. Derek Chauvin, George Floyd, knee on his neck. You know how many black people were there watching? None of them could do anything except for record. You notice how the police officer didn't take the police officers in that incident didn't tell this man to remove his knee off the man's neck because all the police were on code. All the police in this incident were on code. And the black people will have no codes. That's positive. Only thing they could do was record because they were off code. They couldn't go and fight these police because they off code. We don't support each other. But you notice all those police in the incident of George Floyd, white, white, Chauvin, he's white. Derek Chauvin is white. The Chinese officer, he was white. Another officer was white, and the other officer biracial. All of them were on code that day to kill George Floyd. That's why all of them need to go to prison. That's police on code. And black people, there was many black people there recording that. What did they do? The only code we could do was just record. That's the only way we could save this guy. We don't have no real code of ethics, man. That give us unity, that support us. Matter of fact, when George Floyd was in this predicament with the knee on his neck, what happened to the other black people that were in the car with George Floyd? They left him. They left him off code, criminal codes, or police come scatter. That's criminal codes. That's beta male codes. And I don't like using this word beta male, but that's beta male codes. These are the backwards code that does not benefit black people that we practice. Where were the people who were in the car with George Floyd? Why didn't they follow up with him? Because that's black people off code. The black people who recorded it, that's the least they could do. Why they wasn't fighting with them police officers? Because they off code. We don't have no unity as black people. We off code as blacks. That's why. There's some food for thought. Something for some of us to think about. Some of us, we're not going to be there, unfortunately. And it's sad. But some of us, we're not going to really be there.